Welcome back, coin collectors and history lovers. Today, we're diving into the fascinating story of the 1938 United Kingdom OnePenny, a coin from the reign of King George VI, carrying the timeless design of Britannia. This penny is more than just bronze. It's a window into Britain's past, minted on the eve of World War II, and a piece of history that still shines in the world of numismatics. Let's explore its design, history, and value together. Top 7 first up. The 1938 OnePenny. The 1938 OnePenny coin from the United Kingdom is a fascinating artifact from the late interwar period. Minted during the reign of King George VI, this coin reflects the traditions, political environment, and craftsmanship of the British Empire at that time. Historical background. By 1938, Europe was on the brink of World War II. Tensions were escalating, and Britain was preparing for potential conflict. Despite these troubling signs, everyday commerce and minting operations continued, producing coins like the 1938 penny. Monarch on the coin, King George VI. King George VI ascended the throne in 1936 after the abdication of his brother, King Edward VIII. The 1938 penny carries his left-facing portrait, a calm and dignified representation that came to symbolize stability in a time of uncertainty. Designer of the obverse. The obverse of the coin was designed by Thomas Humphrey Paget. His portrait of George VI shows a king uncrowned, reflecting the tradition of not using a crown on coins featuring male monarchs since the reign of Edward VII. That obverse inscription. The obverse inscription reads George of 6D, G, BR, OMN, Rex F laughing face, IND, IMP, which stand for George VI, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. Reverse design, Britannia. The reverse of the 1938 penny features the iconic figure Britannia, seated with a trident and shield. This image had been used on British pennies since 1797 and symbolized British naval power and empire. Reverse designer. The reverse design was originally created by Leonard Charles Wine in the 19th century, and it was slightly modified over time. The image had become a lasting symbol of British currency. Reverse inscription and denomination. The reverse bears the word OnePenny above Britannia and the date 1938 below. The clear and formal layout made it easy for the public to recognize the coin's value. Composition of the coin. The 1938 penny was made from bronze, consisting of 95.5% copper, 3% tin, and 1.5% zinc. This durable composition had been in use for British pennies since the mid-19th century. Size and weight. The coin has a diameter of 30.8 millimeters and weighs 9.4 grams. Its large size made it quite noticeable in everyday use, especially compared to modern pennies. Minting and circulation. The Royal Mint produced over 45 million 1938 OnePenny coins. Due to the large mintage, these coins were common in circulation throughout the late 1930s and 1940s. The political significance of the coin. Though not inherently political, the coin does reflect Britain's status as an imperial power. The inclusion of IND-IMP, Emperor of India, is significant, especially since India would gain independence less than a decade later, in 1947. Usage in daily life. In 1938, a penny had real purchasing power. It could buy a loaf of bread, a newspaper, or a tram ride. The penny was a key part of everyday life and essential for the economy's functioning. Transition in coin design. The 1938 penny was part of a longer series that would see changes following World War II. By the late 1940s and early 1950s, coin designs began to modernize, but Britannia remained a core symbol until decimalization in 1971. Rarity and collectability. While the 1938 penny is not considered rare due to its high mintage, high-grade examples, such as uncirculated or proof coins, are sought after by collectors. Their value depends on condition, with pristine examples fetching premium prices. Coin variants. There are no major known varieties or errors associated with the 1938 penny, making it consistent across all minted pieces. However, minor die differences may exist, which interest specialist collectors' condition and grading. Coins are graded from poor to uncirculated, Most 1938 pennies available today are in circulated condition, but uncirculated examples are valued for their sharp details in rich brown or red tones. Influence on later coins. The 1938 penny continued to influence British coinage design. The use of Britannia carried forward until the decimal coinage system was introduced, and even beyond in commemorative issues. Cultural and numismatic legacy. Today, the 1938 penny is appreciated for its historical context and classic design. It offers insight into British society just before World War II and remains a favorite among numismatists. The 1938 United Kingdom OnePenny stands as a piece of living history, an enduring reminder of Britain's past, its monarchy, and its people. Whether held for its historical value, aesthetic appeal, or sentimental connection, it is a cherished coin that continues to captivate collectors worldwide. Next step, the 1944 OnePenny coin of the United Kingdom holds a special place in British numismatics. Struck during the later years of World War II, this coin is more than just a piece of currency. It is a witness to a period of immense struggle, sacrifice, and resilience. The penny, as part of the pre-decimal coinage system, was an essential unit in the British monetary structure, forming 1/12th of a shilling and 1/240th of a pound sterling. In 1944, this system was still in full use, and the penny was a common coin in circulation. The 1944 penny was struck in bronze, composed mainly of copper, with small amounts of tin and zinc. The wartime need for metals such as tin created fluctuations in coin composition, but Britain managed to keep the penny in its traditional alloy. On the obverse side of the 1944 penny appears a portrait of King George VI, who was a reigning monarch from 1936 until 1952. His portrait faces left, and the design was created by the engraver Thomas Humphrey Paget. The legend around the king's portrait reads, George of 6D, G, BR, OMN, Rex F laughing face, IND, IMP, which is abbreviated Latin for George VI, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. The inclusion of IND, IMP, Emperor of India, is particularly significant as it reflects the British Empire's global presence during 1944. India, however, would soon gain independence in 1947, making later coins bear a slightly different inscription. The reverse side of the coin displays the famous image of Britannia, the female personification of Britain, seated on a rock, holding a trident in her left hand and a shield resting beside her. Britannia symbolizes strength and maritime dominance. This design of Britannia had been used on pennies since 1797 and continued until the decimalization of British currency in 1971. For the 1944 penny, the design remained traditional and unchanged. The reverse legend is simple, displaying the word OnePenny along the upper edge and the year 1944 at the bottom, clearly indicating its date of issue during the height of World War II. In terms of size, the 1944 penny is large compared to modern coins. It measures 30.8 millimeters in diameter, weighs about 9.4 grams, and has a plain edge. Its significant weight and size made a coin of substance, easily recognizable by touch. Production of the 1944 penny was carried out at the Royal Mint in London, which continued to function even during the bombings of the Blitz earlier in the war. The mint had to adapt to wartime conditions, but maintained coinage for domestic and overseas use. Interestingly, large numbers of 1944 pennies were produced, making it a relatively common date for collectors today. The Royal Mint struck over 42 million pennies that year, ensuring enough supply for Britain's war-torn economy. Despite its commonness, the coin still carries historical value, because it's circulated among citizens during a time of strict rationing, blackouts, and uncertainty about the war's outcome. Every 1944 penny tells a story of survival and hope. Many of these coins would have been carried by British soldiers, workers in factories, and families struggling through rationing. As such, the penny became a small but vital part of daily life. In terms of collectability, the 1944 penny is not considered rare, but its appeal lies in its wartime connection and its handsome design. Collectors often seek examples in higher grades, with mint state specimens commanding higher prices. The value of a 1944 penny today can vary. In circulated condition, It may only be worth a small amount, often between 1 and 2 pounds. However, in uncirculated or proof-like condition, its value can rise considerably, sometimes fetching 20 to 50 pounds depending on condition. Some 1944 pennies were also struck for use in overseas territories, as the British penny was widely recognized in many parts of the Commonwealth. This gave the coin circulation far beyond the United Kingdom itself. The coin represents not only British currency, but also the endurance of tradition during a time of crisis. Even while the world was engulfed in war, Britain continued to produce coins featuring the steadfast image of Britannia, symbolizing stability. After the war, pennies continued to be struck in large numbers under George VI until his death in 1952, and then under Queen Elizabeth II. But the wartime years, especially coins from 1940 to 1945, are especially prized for their historic associations. In conclusion, the 1944 OnePenny is more than just bronze and design. It is a coin that embodies the perseverance of a nation at war, the continuity of monarchy, and the enduring symbolism of Britannia. It remains a treasured reminder of Britain's wartime history and the role of coinage in everyday resilience. Next step, the 1945 OnePenny coin of the United Kingdom holds a special place in British numismatic history. Not only does it represent a transitional period for British coinage, but it also marks the closing years of World War II and the beginning of a new era for the British economy and currency system. This penny was part of the long-running pre-decimal British coinage system, which lasted until 1971. In this system, 1 penny was equal to 1/240 of a pound sterling, meaning 240 pennies made up 1 pound. The penny, therefore, had a smaller individual value but was vital in everyday transactions. The design of the coin is iconic. On the obverse, it features a portrait of King George VI, who reigned from 1936 until his death in 1952. His portrait was created by the artist Thomas Humphrey Paget, T.H. Paget, and is considered one of the most elegant depictions of a British monarch on coinage. The reverse of the coin features the well-known image of Britannia, the female personification of Britain. She is seated facing right, wearing a classical helmet and holding a trident in her left hand and a shield with a Union Jack in her right. This imagery symbolized Britain's naval power and resilience during turbulent years. The legend around the obverse reads George 6D, G, BR, OMN, Rex F laughing face, INDIMP, which expands to George VI by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. This inscription highlights the king's dual role as monarch of Britain and Emperor of India, though India gained independence just 2 years later, in 1947. By 1945, Britain was emerging from the Second World War, and the country was under severe economic strain. Despite rationing and shortages, the Royal Mint continued to produce coins for circulation. However, the 1945 penny was only struck for proof sets, making it one of the rarest modern British coins. Unlike other wartime years where pennies were produced in large numbers, the 1945 penny was not minted for general circulation. The decision to strike only proofs was linked to both reduced demand for small coinage and the fact that earlier wartime issues were still in circulation in abundance. Because of this, the 1945 penny has become extremely rare. Collectors today prize it as one of the key rarities in the George VI penny series. Its scarcity makes it far more valuable than regular circulation pennies of the period. The composition of the coin was a traditional bronze alloy of the time, made from 95% copper, 4% tin, and 1% zinc. This composition had been in place since the mid-19th century, though the Royal Mint would later adjust alloys for durability and cost reasons. The size of the penny was also substantial compared to modern coins. It measured 30.81 millimeters in diameter and weighed 9.4 grams, making a large coin that was easy to handle. Many people at the time referred to the penny as a cartwheel because of its impressive size compared to its small face value. The 1945 penny fits into a broader history of British pennies stretching back to Anglo-Saxon times. The denomination had been used for centuries, evolving from tiny silver coins to the large bronze issues of the Victorian era and later. King George VI's pennies from 1937 to 1952 are particularly interesting for collectors, not only for their historical connection to World War II, but also because of the rare proof-only years like 1950 and 1951, alongside 1945. These years are crucial for completing a set. One fascinating aspect of the 1945 penny is that its proof status meant it was struck with special dies and polished blanks, giving a mirror-like finish. This is why genuine 1945 pennies have a much sharper detail and brilliance compared to ordinary circulation issues of other years. Because of its rarity, the 1945 penny has been the subject of much counterfeiting. Collectors must be cautious, as altered coins from nearby years, particularly 1948 pennies, are sometimes passed off as 1945 proofs. Authentication from trusted numismatic experts is essential. The value of a genuine 1945 penny can be extraordinary, depending on condition and provenance. Examples have fetched thousands of pounds at auction. For collectors of British coinage, owning a 1945 penny is considered a highlight of their collection. In terms of historical symbolism, the 1945 penny reflects the resilience of Britain at the end of the war. Even though coin production was limited, the continued minting of proof sets shows the monarchy and mint's commitment to maintaining tradition and ceremonial continuity. The penny as a denomination would eventually be phased out in 1971 during decimalization, when the UK switched from 240 pence to the pound to 100 new pence to the pound. The old large bronze pennies became obsolete, making coins like the 1945 penny relics of a vanished system. Collectors often see the 1945 penny as part of a trilogy of rare pennies, 1933, 1950, and 1951. Each has its own story of scarcity, but the 1945 proof issue stands out because it marks the final year of the war, giving it extra historical depth. Today, museums, private collections, and a few lucky individuals preserve surviving examples of the 1945 penny. They serve not only as collectible items, but also as tangible connections to the world of Britain in 1945, still imperial, still recovering from war, and standing on the threshold of dramatic social change. Ultimately, the 1945 OnePenny of the United Kingdom is far more than just a coin. It is a piece of history, a symbol of scarcity, and a treasure for collectors. From its proof-only production to its post-war significance, it remains one of the most fascinating and valuable coins in British numismatic heritage. Next step, the 1946 OnePenny coin from the United Kingdom is a fascinating piece of numismatic history, as it represents both continuity and change in British coinage. Issued in the immediate aftermath of World War II, it holds symbolic importance as part of Britain's recovery and economic rebuilding years. The penny was part of the pre-decimal currency system, which remained in use until 1971. Under this system, a penny was worth 1/240 of a pound sterling. Despite its low value, it was widely used in everyday transactions, making it one of the most recognized coins in Britain. The obverse front of the coin features a portrait of King George VI, who reigned from 1936 to 1952. His portrait, designed by Thomas Humphrey Paget, T.H. Paget, shows the king facing left bareheaded and is considered one of the most dignified royal portraits on 20th century coinage. The reverse back of the coin depicts the enduring figure Britannia, the female warrior seated with a trident and shield. This design had been used on pennies since the reign of Charles II in the 17th century, symbolizing Britain's naval dominance and national pride. The legend around the obverse reads, George of 6D, G, BR, OMN, Rex F laughing face, IND, AMP, which translates to George VI by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. This inscription reflects Britain's status as an imperial power in 1946. Though change was on the horizon, India gained independence just 1 year later, in 1947, which meant coins struck after that year no longer carried the IND, AMP, Emperor of India title. Thus, the 1946 penny is historically significant as one of the last British pennies to bear reference to the British Raj. The coin was struck in bronze, consisting of 95.5% copper, 3% tin, and 1.5% zinc. This alloy was durable and had been used since Victorian times. However, post-war shortages of metals were an increasing concern, and by the 1950s, adjustments in coin composition became necessary. The size and weight of the 1946 penny were impressive by today's standards. It measured 3081 millimeters in diameter and weighed 9.4 grams, making a large, heavy coin that people often refer to as a cartwheel in everyday speech. In terms of production, the 1946 penny was minted for general circulation and is therefore more common than rarities like the 1945 or 1951 pennies, which were issued only in proof or in limited numbers. Millions were struck at the Royal Mint in London. Despite its relatively large mintage, the 1946 penny remains popular among collectors due to its historical timing. It reflects Britain's transition from war to peace, from empire to commonwealth, and from austerity to gradual recovery. Collectors often seek 1946 pennies in high-grade condition, uncirculated or proof-like, as circulation-worn examples are plentiful. Coins that retain their original reddish-bronze luster can fetch much higher values in the numismatic market. The year 1946 also falls within a broader pattern of important pennies during the reign of George VI. Numismatists often collect the entire series from 1937 to 1952, with 1946 being a midpoint coin that connects the rare wartime and post-war issues. An interesting aspect of the 1946 penny is its imperial inscription, which links it to the very end of Britain's role as a global colonial power. After 1947, the obverse legend was shortened, making coins like the 1946 penny a reminder of Britain's changing role in the world. By 1946, the penny was still heavily used in commerce, though inflation was eroding its purchasing power. A penny could still buy small goods like matches, sweets, or newspapers, making it essential in everyday transactions. The coin also carried a cultural weight. Pennies were used in traditional sayings, school lessons, and even children's games like heads or tails. The 1946 penny would have been in the hands of ordinary Britons across the country, from shopkeepers to school children. In terms of minting quality, the 1946 pennies were struck to normal circulation standards, unlike the special proof strikes of certain earlier years. This makes them less rare, but they are still historically important, especially in fine condition. Some numismatists also note varieties in 1946 pennies, particularly in die characteristics and slight striking differences, though these are not as dramatic as major error coins. Such varieties can still attract collector interest. The 1946 penny belongs to the final decades of Britannia penny series, which ended in 1970. With decimalization in 1971, the large bronze penny disappeared, replaced by the smaller one new penny coin. Thus, the 1946 penny is part of a long tradition that came to an end within a generation. Today, the 1946 penny is relatively affordable for collectors compared to rarer dates. However, its value lies in its historical symbolism, a coin that captures Britain in the year after the greatest conflict in its history, standing between empire and modernity. Ultimately, the 1946 OnePenny is more than just a coin. It is a tangible artifact of Britain's resilience, its imperial past, and its post-war challenges. For collectors and historians alike, it remains a piece of living history, solid bronze and steeped in significance. Next up, the 1948 one-penny coin from the United Kingdom is one of the most historically significant pennies of the reign of King George VI. It was struck in the years immediately following World War II and reflects the major political and economic changes Britain was undergoing at the time. The coin was issued under the pre-decimal currency system, where one penny represented 1/240 of a pound sterling. Though it had a small face value, the penny was an essential denomination used daily by millions of people across Britain. On the obverse front of the 1948 penny is the portrait of King George VI, who reigned from 1936 until his death in 1952. His portrait, designed by Thomas Humphrey Paget, T.H. Paget, shows a king facing left bareheaded with a calm and steady expression, symbolizing strength and dignity. The reverse back of the coin features a traditional seated figure of Britannia, a personification of Britain that had appeared on pennies since the 17th century. She sits facing right, holding a trident in her left hand and resting her right hand on a Union Jack shield, with the C in the background. The legend around the obverse reads, George of 6D, G, BR, OMN, Rex Fidei Def. This expands to George VI, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith. This inscription is historically important because it was the first time the words IND, IMP, Emperor of India, were removed from British coins. This change happened because India gained independence in 1947, ending Britain's centuries-long rule over the subcontinent. As a result, coins minted in 1948 no longer bore the title IND, IMP. The 1948 penny is therefore a key transitional coin marking the end of the British Raj. The 1948 penny was struck in bronze, with a composition of 95.5% copper, 3% tin, and 1.5% zinc. This durable alloy had been used since the Victorian era and gave the coins a rich reddish-brown color when new. Over time, most surviving coins darkened to a chocolate-brown patina. The coin measured 30.81 millimeters in diameter and weighed 9.4 grams. Its large size made it easy to handle, and many Britons refer to the penny as a cartwheel, although this term originally applied to the oversized copper pennies of 1797. The 1948 penny was produced in large numbers for general circulation at the Royal Mint in London. Unlike rare proof-only issues, such as the 1945 penny, the 1948 penny was widely available and used across the United Kingdom. In terms of mintage, millions of 1948 pennies were struck, which is why they are relatively common today in circulated condition. However, high-grade examples with original mint luster are much scarcer and sought after by collectors. The removal of IND, IMP from the coinage is one of the most important changes in British coin history. It not only reflected the political reality of Indian independence, but also signaled the beginning of the transformation of the British Empire into the Commonwealth of Nations. For everyday Britons in 1948, the penny continued to be an important coin in daily life. Despite post-war austerity and rationing, a penny could still purchase small goods, such as a newspaper, matches, or children's sweets, keeping it relevant in commerce. The penny also held cultural value. It was used in games, traditions, and phrases like a penny for your thoughts. In 1948, countless schoolchildren, shopkeepers, and workers handled pennies like these every day, making them an intimate part of daily British life. The 1948 penny is often studied by numismatists because of its transitional obverse inscription. Collectors of the George VI series prize this date, since it marks the clear shift from imperial to post-imperial coinage. Condition plays a huge role in the value of the 1948 penny. Worn examples are easy to find, but brilliant uncirculated coins with original red or red-brown surfaces are far rarer and can command strong prices at auction. Though it was not struck as a rare coin, the 1948 penny remains historically important. It stands alongside the 1950 and 1951 pennies, both low-mintage issues of George VI, as an essential part of any serious British penny collection. Some collectors also look for errors or varieties within the 1948 issue, such as weak strikes or die differences. While no major errors are widely recognized, minor varieties can add interest to a collection. The penny remained in use until decimalization in 1971, when Britain abandoned the old system of 240 pennies to the pound in favor of 100 new pence to the pound. After this, the large bronze penny became obsolete, making coins like the 1948 penny relics of a bygone age. Today, the 1948 penny is not particularly rare, but it is cherished for its historical importance. It connects directly to Britain's shifting world role after World War II, its changing empire, and its adaptation to a new post-colonial identity. In conclusion, the 1948 United Kingdom OnePenny is more than just a coin. It is a marker of history, minted in the first year after Indian independence, symbolizing Britain's imperial decline and resilience in the post-war era. For collectors and historians alike, it remains a timeless piece of numismatic heritage.